Okay, thanks. So I want to thank you all for coming. My name's Mary Brainy, and I do consulting for libraries, mostly of the size of your towns. And what we're working on right now is a building program. And the building program is essentially the letter to the architect that defines what the needs are, what the wants are, what the requirements are for library buildings. And it is a required element of the grant application that Mass Board of Library Commissioners just issued a new grant round. The application isn't due until May.
March 2024.
Oh, March 2020. They both begin with M. So the MBLC requires public input into the process. They want to hear from all the residents. So there's a survey out. We're doing 3 focus groups, 2 public forums over the next month. And in addition to that, the building program requires that, I sit down with Justin and the staff and look at what's the building itself, what's working now. And then there are standards for, or not standards, but best practices for the size of the collection and things like that. And then there are the state regs about parking and now required electric vehicle spaces and all those kinds of things too. So you're the very first focus group that we have. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is a little bit of brainstorming. And so I'm going to ask in 5 different categories. And so if we can just go through them one at a time, and we'll take a few minutes with each one, and then we'll move on. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what do you think are the strengths of the library as it is now? What's the good stuff? And you can talk about both the facility, both the building itself, and the way it operates, the things that it offers and those kinds. So what are the strengths?
Staff.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Location.
Yeah.
The children's programs.
The hours it's open, I think, pretty accessible.
I'd say the collection. The collection, maybe with a collection as good as it can be in the space that it has.
The outreach of what the staff has done in getting the collection to people who can't get there or that would rather not come in.
And it has internet access, availability of computers. Some elderly people don't have that. And the Wi-Fi there. What about narrows it down?
Yeah, okay. So let's see then. These are the strengths, then let's move on. And we'll come back because part of this is, you think of something, as we go along, and we'll add to it. And then also sometimes ideas, you generate your own ideas as you go along. All right, so what are the challenges
handicap accessibility. That's with a big star next to it.
I even find parking, even with the parking lot, you know,
Can't get in the back.
it's not, exactly.
What do you mean you can't?
Well, it's just, sometimes it's full, you know, you go
Really?
back. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
I've been
I've
back
never-
there. I've been back there, and my truck's not little, the truck I drive, and I'm like, oh. So I have to turn around, do a three-point turn and try to get out. But,
Not
yeah.
only that, but like my vehicle, I
Yeah.
can't drive in there.
Yeah,
I
okay.
hit.
Yeah, bottom, yeah, the entrance.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
too. Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I do bottom out,
Yeah,
when
I
I'm
go
pulling in
really,
and out.
Yeah.
I do really,
Yeah.
real slow.
I have heard people complain to me, and I say, hey, you need to take it where it'll be most effective, is not, there's people that are parking there on the side of the driveway that are not supposed to.
Mhm. Right in front of the do not park,
Yeah.
no parking signs that I put up.
That's right.
I know.
See, that's because you just invited them back.
I
on the
put it
side.
up. I shouldn't have put it up. It's like, oh, we can park here now.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. Obviously restrooms, if you're talking
Oh,
interior of the building,
Yeah,
that's all,
possibility, yeah.
you know, restrooms, you
Yeah.
know,
Great
Space.
building, it's got good bones, but it was built in the, late 1800, early 1900s,
1920.
and that still is.
yeah, exactly.
1903.
1903.
There you go.
Circled it.
So good bones goes under the strengths,
Yeah.
and
Space.
good bones old
Yeah.
goes under the challenges.
Space. Not enough space.
Interior space.
Yes. I mean,
I don't know how big a parcel that sits on.
I don't, I mean, we own like, I think it's like 10 feet off of Josie's building behind it. I found that out recently because there was trees back there and the poles and National Grid, and we were trying to figure out who owned what. We own like right up to his walkway all the way to the back.
The library
The
goes
library
all
does.
the way almost to that
Yeah.
sidewalk that's next to Josie's building.
So that's good, but, good situation as far as if you was to add on, expand it.
Well, then you've got
increase
the
your
Rivers
parking.
Bill and the River Protection Act, and if you want to widen the parking lot, it's all
I think
kinds
I-
of
I think
hurdles.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't say it'd be easy, but it's good.
So what are the hurdles?
There's a river back there.
Oh, okay.
Protected wetlands.
Exactly.
Well, you're in the water district,
Yeah.
so I don't know what exact zone that is on the backside of that.
Aquifer protection, you mean,
Yeah.
zone?
Yeah. Well, there's multiple zones going down through town also. The river gives you one zone, stepping out from the river's
Yeah.
another zone, so.
Yeah, I've never been back there, so I'm not sure how close it is.
And it's not evident from the street. I mean, you
Yeah,
that's-
correct.
Yeah, you guys know.
That's like, well, a little ways down Main Street, there was a business, a restaurant. And during the pandemic, she spent so much money on putting up a space outside for outside dining. And then when it was all finished, she was told, she had, there was a wetlands
Well,
encroachment.
she paved
She
too
put a
much of
concrete
the
pad.
area.
Right.
Ah, yeah.
And,
Without any
and when you look
Without
at
any
the place,
permit.
you can't tell that there's anything there.
Well, that's because it's in the
Increase
aquifer
surface.
area.
That was
Right.
It didn't have to do with the Mumford River,
Right.
but it was the aquifer.
But to go back to space, I know I said one of the challenges was space. And again, the challenges of increasing that space in the current place. But I don't know how to put it. I mean, there's enough total square footage in that building to probably accommodate what the town would like. But it needs to be,
Reconfigured.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the restroom alone, I mean, that's, you
Yeah,
know that alone.
you'd have
to
Once you get a
triple
proper
that.
restroom, I think you won't have a lot of space, you know, once you make it handicap
That's
accessible.
true.
So you start adding the things that are supposed to be like, you know, the size they're supposed to be, then you won't have the space. You know, even with, nothing just in your office is horrible, but, you know, it's, you know, that's what it is. It's not an office. It's, you know, open to the public. You should have his own office. You should have a small meeting room like this in the
Right.
library, you know, that people can use. There's things like that that you should have.
Well, increasing space doesn't have to come this way. It can come this way.
So
And then you eliminate a lot of things.
I'm really glad that, you know, that you're here, and your affiliation is?
I'm the building commissioner.
Oh, okay, oh, great, perfect. 'Cause a lot of times we don't
All right,
get.
I'll leave now.
Oh,
Oh, thank God.
A lot of times there are questions that you folks know the answers to, because you're the ones that have to live with them, and you're on,
Building and facilities, but I've also been on the planning board and conservation,
yeah,
so.
yeah, so you know some of the things that,
This is
We
meant
have
to be
to
a
go-
building expert heavy focus group.
yeah, and so these are things that that you bring a perspective that the general public doesn't bring, because you are inside the infrastructure of the building. You know what the codes are, all the kinds of things so that building, you can think about structurally how much renovation you can do based on it's 100 and something years old, and, you know, what's supporting what, and all those kinds of things.
I mean, they would still all need an engineer survey for the accurate numbers for the foundation and what the exterior wall condition is and interior timbers and all that, even if you was putting an addition off the back or the front or the side or whatever. But I mean, everybody gets fixated on, oh, I want to make it bigger, so I gotta, it's not necessarily, you can go up.
Right, well, you may go up, but can you go up? I mean,
Well,
and
that would
that's,
be a
yeah, that's
structural
the
review,
structural,
yeah,
exactly.
I mean, to
So,
make that compliant anyways, you should have an elevator inside there, so if you want another floor, you would just extend the elevator.
Yeah.
To do all 3 floors, you know, there's so many things you can do
There-
within that footprint.
and so, my first experience with all this heavy-duty addition renovation was at the Richard Sugden Library in Spencer. And this was in the very first grant round back I was just looking over at the paperwork yesterday. It took us over 10 years because the big dig was going on in Boston, and they held up our funding for 5 years. But, and in that time, codes changed as well, which threw another curveball, particularly elevator and fire suppression systems. But the idea was an old building, with similar age, small footprint, to go out, and the engineer, or the architects and engineers had said, okay, when we break through to do the addition, we figure we can support the building on whatever interior structure there is in the walls, and they opened it up and found out everything had crumbled. So it had to be totally re-engineered. So, I mean, those are the kinds of things that you do your best on, and then you find out, you know, back to square one. So that's why it's good to have you folks here that have a concept that it's not easy. And the thing with the building, this whole building program concept is, it defines the needs for the town, the library needs for the town. It does not make a judgment about renovation, addition renovation, or new construction. It just lays out what you should have, and then the next step, you get in the experts that figure out what can happen and how can it happen. So I'm really pleased that you're here that I can, and then now I have faces when I have questions as I go along. So any other challenges that you can see? I know that there's a will that says that that has to be,
It has to be used as a public library.
Library.
As
A public
opposed to
library.
the heirs of the Simons Fairfield.
yep, so, so
I
that's,
believe one of the biggest challenges, as I see it, and I'm not saying this from any board,
yep,
is getting the people all on board, especially the library board. Too many times, this has been brought or out there, being talked about, trying to get something moving. Probably brought before a town meeting at least once. And at that, having the chairman of the library board putting a no vote on her lawn. So that's not good. That's a challenge.
Yep.
And it wasn't that long ago that the library almost closed because of funds, and there was a need for an override. And a group of people got together and worked at it, but it didn't pass by much. So that's a challenge.
It certainly is, yep.
And too much money has been, spent and nothing in return because it wasn't voted.
I think that's a good point.
I mean, how bad do the people want this? And mainly, if the board isn't out there for it and working for it, and they do have a good volunteer group that are doing and raising money. But,
So one of the strengths is volunteers who raise money.
yes,
Yeah, the Friends of the Library are a very good asset. They provide a lot of funding for programs. People were talking about one of the pluses is the children's programming. Well, a lot of the funds for that comes from the Friends and other physical things over time, small things here and there that they pay for. It doesn't have to come out of the regular budget.
So another challenge is funding.
absolutely.
There does seem
Oh,
to
you
be
have
an increased interest in going back to paperback books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, for the longest time, it went digital and all that, but it does, the little bookstore opened up downtown. My wife herself has been there many times, fascinated at, what
Yeah.
she can get there and everything. I see a lot of people going in and out of there. A lot of people are very skeptical, that that won't last. But it's going on a year, it's still there,
Yeah.
so.
Right. Can you think of any other challenges right now, or shall we move on? Oops. And the next thing we're going to talk about is opportunities. And opportunities in two senses. One,
Move that down.
actually, I was going to move it here so you could see the, so it's still the visual. So opportunities, and I can read my own handwriting. I've been reading it for.
You couldn't read mine, so you're all right. Remember that.
Oh, yeah, I can read. You'd be surprised. I taught school for a long time. I can read a lot. So what does this, even just looking at the project, thinking about it, what are the opportunities that it presents for the library and for the town as a whole? Library users, you folks who have to go in there and work on some of the
Well,
Very
it definitely needs to be like upgrades. I mean, that's huge. If you have upgrades on a lot of things, I mean, I can list it right now, in the next 5 to 7 years, they're gonna need a roof. In the next, they need repointing now inside and out on the bricks. Again, the restroom, I talk about that all the time. Justin's done great with carpeting and other things, the lighting. I mean, there's upgrades that need to be done throughout the whole building, so.
How about code stuff?
Oh, yeah.
I would say your biggest opportunity is if you make that more compliant, more accessible to more people. More people will use it.
Agreed.
I think a community meeting room that's open to the public.
A lot of libraries have that. That's.
Oh, yeah,
it's a
they
good selling point.
absolutely do.
Yep.
The problem with those is they're so big. I mean, I go to monthly meetings in Grafton. They have a big new
Yeah.
library there.
Yeah.
And they have a community meeting room on the side that we go in and have
Yeah.
our meetings. But you don't have the space.
Yeah.
Exactly, but there needs to be some kind of space dedicated to that, not a space where it's multi-use, where they're setting up a program for book club or a children's group or a parent thing, and then they gotta shift everything around because there's another group coming in for, an outside group, the Boy Scouts or something coming in for a meeting or something.
So
I-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So something I understand that, yeah, and over my tenure in working, I've worked with libraries in like 10 different communities, and they're all, yeah, they have these huge rooms. I don't think we really need that, but we just need some place that can be used just for community.
So you need a meeting room that's the right size for you. And as I go around to all the different libraries and work with them, it really is what the community wants. So some libraries, like Grafton, perhaps, and I don't know, but I'm just saying, perhaps the town asked them to build a big enough facility to have, I know that there is one town that I know of that absolutely flat out wants a big enough to hold town meeting, because they don't have any place in town to hold it. It's not what the library needs. So it makes the footprint look bigger, but the town asked for it because it's a town need. So part of what this process does is make sure that we get the right size for the library. It has to be the right size for the library. But if that's good for the town as well, then perfect, That's, there are trade-offs, as we all know.
And as Ken's saying, my question with, if you have a renovation coming off the back, well, that kind of takes away the only little bit of parking we have.
Yep.
So there's another issue there. And one of the things that we talk about, especially in this building, is the aesthetics of the building, the old type, the way it looks. I want the renovation to look the same, look similar, match it. You don't want, an add-on like the elementary school that looks all fancy and, sharp corners. You want to keep the aesthetics of that building.
Yeah.
The historic value of that building.
So that's what it looks like is a strength, and a challenge is keep with building historic characteristics.
Correct.
Yep.
So an example was the old package store downtown, when they came to me for building permits, and I said to them, you want to try and keep with the uniqueness of what's downtown. I don't think you would have much approval if you went down there and changed that to a glass storefront building and, off you went. And I think they did a pretty good job.
They did.
Yep.
Very
Back
nice.
nicely.
Do you have zoning regs that restrict
We
it?
don't have any zoning regs that dictate that they have to be X, Y, Z.
Okay, yep. That's good to know, because some towns have height limitations.
We have height restrictions.
Oh, you do?
But
Okay.
that's state mandated laws anyways.
Okay,
35
but
feet.
nothing extra for,
No,
you don't have any
they're
extra
all, they can be brought before boards and, you can get exceptions to it and
Okay.
everything else.
all
So
right. So, that's good to
Is
know.
that-
We've got
there
about-
a second floor on that anyway? Is it just a crawl space as a library?
Oh, library upstairs?
Yeah.
It is like a second floor. It's oddly
It's
shaped.
a
You gotta-
quasi.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
You've got that
'Cause
little
like
bit of
it's-
area
it's-
that's full stand-up, and then you've got the elf door, right?
Two outdoors, but then you can stand up in those.
Yeah.
After you get through the doors, you can stand
Once you get through the
back
door, so.
Yeah.
Well, and one of
But
the
you
elf
can't
doors
stand
has
up and-
steps. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
One-
building
one-
height right now is basically 2 stories, so
All
you
right.
can average a story
And the
at
basement.
10 feet. But you don't go to the basement, you're doing ground level, okay? So
Yeah.
we're talking height. So
Okay, yeah.
average story is about 10 feet. Commercial buildings can be as much as 15 feet. So right now with 2 stories, you're somewhere between 20 and 30 feet.
Because in the back where the parking is, that's,
That's down, but it's the
The basement.
average
okay,
around,
yeah.
which I
And-
tried to get written out, but that didn't
Exactly.
pass through, so. But anyways, is that something that could happen? That's something that could happen in Gore, but a full floor, how's that? Would that be a better definition of it?
On the second, you're talking the
And make a
second.
full accessible floor.
I mean, if you had, instead of having that big vaulted area in the middle when you walk in, if that was the floor with an elevator to the side, a set of stairs beside that, maybe your restrooms all on the first floor, And then your second floor, maybe it's a multi-purpose room. Maybe one side of it is your conference room area, and the other side is the kids and, you know, groups that, you know, for your day reading and all that stuff.
Because as far as like a community room, I mean, we have that down at the Adult Social Center. I mean, that's our community rooms. To make the library have a big community room that might be used once or twice a week for somebody to just, you know, come in, I mean, I would like to just see it be kept for library purposes.
But I do think,
Because this building here, we have many community rooms.
and sometimes you can't, you know, you have to juggle the use of the community rooms, because you can't always.
Yes,
get-
but to take away from the library's
No,
purpose.
and I'm not saying take away from it, I hear
Yeah,
what you're saying,
yeah.
but I think you're right. We need, there's that open space or open area in the back on, off to the side. But again, people are using the regular part of the room, and we've held meetings in that room, small meetings, like the historical met there once, and we met downstairs too. But, it is noisy
Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to
Right,
have a discussion.
right.
So it does need to be,
But I would
and a
rather
little bit bigger, but
See, if
not
it
a
kept as
whole.
a library,
Yeah.
for library
Yeah.
purposes,
Yeah.
if we're gonna be doing any
Right,
renovation.
right.
Yeah, and so, yeah, those are all, that's really helpful to know. As I said, some towns have no meeting space, zero. And so if they're gonna build a new building or do addition renovation, they've got to incorporate it. And it's, you know, so it's really important to know that that's not an issue for you folks. You're not looking to accommodate tons of other groups, but you do need, of course, library space where they can have their own, where you can all have your own programs and things, yes.
So in addition to that, so Douglas did get funding at one point. I can't remember. I was on the Board of Selectmen at the time. And we did get funding from the state to make our library bigger. But the reason it didn't pass is people felt it
You
was
mean
too
a
big.
town meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
It was too big. But at that time, they could have applied for a 10% reduction in the size. But the building committee that was doing that, or the library board, whichever, I can't remember, refused to request that. So we got
Before my
nothing.
time.
Well, it's interesting how things have changed.
Yes.
A couple of things. Number one, even though people are back to books, we don't need the space for the collections. So magazines, one building program, 20-year-old one that I read, they wanted 1,500 square feet to store old magazine, you know, because people needed back issues. I mean, this was 25 years ago, right?
Sure.
Now, maybe 20 square feet. Reference books, we don't use reference books anymore. Any library may have a set of encyclopedias and one or two other things. So instead of having 800 or 1,000 square feet for that. So big chunks of collection space go away. However, that space can be repurposed because now you need to have the computers accessible for people, or space for people to bring their own. All the adaptive technologies that you want to be able to have people, you know, the big magnifiers to read the print, or and all those kinds of things that, so it's different. So it may be less space for the collections, but you still need a certain amount of space for the different newer functions, you know? So I would say that, and so now we'll try and get it right. You know, we'll try and get it exactly what it is that the definitions are based on a lot of different factors, a lot of moving parts. Any other opportunities?
I mean, the opportunity would be the chance to retrofit the space, like you're saying, for the new adaptive parts of this whole thing. Also, I look at this whole project, and I mean, I'm in a position that I'm watching the town grow daily by permits and everything. I did 60 new houses last year alone. This year, we're on track for about the same. So, I mean, that's, at a couple, that's 120 new people in town each year. The town's grown exponentially. I've been in town a long time also. And the growth with the commercial industry that's starting to come towards town and everything else. And yeah, that was fine in 1903. It was probably fine in 1980, and it was fine again in 2000 because the population hadn't grown.
That's right.
But we're pushing 10,000 people in town now.
So
think it'd be
actually,
very-
the 2020 census says, I believe it's 10,142. So you passed it.
Can I interject a fun fact?
Sure.
The MBLC classifies libraries by square footage between tiny, small, medium, large. We would have to double our square footage before we qualify as tiny.
Yeah.
Really?
Wow.
And, but here's the other interesting thing, that they ask us to project 30 years out, needs for 30 years, based on the anticipated 30-year population. The UMass Donahue Institute does those projections based on the most recent US Census. So based on the 2020 census, and I'll have something else to say about this, they expect, they project for Douglas a population of 8,983 in 2050, which means a decline in population. But what they really look at is the overall birth rates. They don't look at building permits, they don't look at available land, and things like that, you know? So that's gonna be an interesting, I don't know if you've had any, if CMRPC has done any more recent estimates, but I'll be looking to see if, you know, if that's around, for now, because we want to be accurate. I mean, that's,
I mean, I look beyond birth rates, I look at population shift. Affordability factor is the biggest part of that.
Yeah.
it is, and yeah, see, and those are the things we have to kind of tease out of the projections, but they want a reasonable authority. They don't just want us saying, well, this sounds like a good number, you know, but the things that how much available space do you have left? You know, buildable space do you have left? But 60 building permits, well, as a matter of fact, some people I know literally moved into Douglas yesterday in brand new construction. And no, they're moving today because, that's right, because I said, you know, I
can't help you move, oh no.
So the conversation went something like, oh, am I gonna see you on Thursday to play golf? Nope, I'm helping so-and-so move. I said, oh, whereabouts? And she said, new house in Douglas. I said, oh, I'm gonna be there. You know, we've got to get her to come, now that she's moving into town, she and her husband, we've got to get them to come to these meetings. And the rest of the conversation went something like, oh, good, in between, just run over and help.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna bring up an unpopular thing, and it's not the way I feel, but.
Join me.
No, it's just, if this doesn't, say they look into this building and they can't extend off the back, they can't go up, would the library consider like maybe taking down the old elementary school? Is moving an option, keeping it in the downtown area? Now you have more parking, now maybe, I'm just, you know, taking that building down or making a new one. I'm just saying, I know that's discussed in, you know, different times. I don't wanna see another vacant building, believe me, I deal with it all the time. But if they said this couldn't happen.
So the objective answer is that with the grant proposal, you have to present two separate sites.
Okay,
So you absolutely have to, they want two separate sites presented, two viable sites presented. So that's definitely
I'm just thinking
on.
downtown area, it's still close, it's near the schools. You know, I could say the VFW building, but you're now at the other end of town, you're not downtown, you know.
I
it's-
think that's even smaller.
Yeah, exactly, no, I'm not taking the building, even if you just,
Oh, you mean
even if
the
one
land.
goes out,
Even
just a
in the
land.
site, that's,
Well, the only
Right.
other thing is that actually it's the geographical center of town.
Oh, yeah, originally, yeah.
And
Yep.
if you look at the development residentially has typically been south,
Yeah,
southwest, and north.
that's all the land. yeah.
Douglas. It hasn't been eastern side of
No,
Douglas.
yep.
Road.
So, and that's huge in, one of the very big criteria is location. You know, and that's because every town's different. You know, when I did the building program for Sutton, their library is in the center,
Yeah,
but they have 5 villages, and you have to drive to get to
Exactly.
the library anyway. That's very different from Leicester and Spencer, where they're on Route 9 on a bus route. You know, that you, so those are all those things go. And then throw in the conditions of the land, the wetlands or the restrictions. So all those things go into the pot. And I'm glad you guys are here, because I would have been tracking you down anyway, and I may still track again.
well, it's just I look at parking, like, you know, you
Yeah.
need parking, you know, that's all.
Yeah,
and that, you know, the old elementary,
Yep.
to me, that's a good solid building.
Yeah.
So that could be renovated.
And
Yeah, and parking, and objecting from the school, because that site has been proposed for other
Oh, yeah, apartments
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
apartments
Yeah.
and
So
so
you talking
forth.
about the building next to the post office or
Yeah,
behind the
behind,
post
Yeah,
office?
the old elementary school.
The old
Now,
haunted house.
Yeah, okay.
pros and cons, some people feel tear it down.
you know,
Other people say, oh no, not on my watch,
yeah.
you know. So, and the town did put money into that as far as, but that's years
Been years,
now.
yeah.
Just to
Because
secure
it was,
Just, yeah.
it was a disaster.
They removed the asbestos, they removed the oil tanks, they
Yeah.
removed the, you know,
Front porch.
but they still have lead paint everywhere. You know, and the roof is actually gonna, it's probably, the next 10 years need to be done.
Does
Yeah,
our current library have lead paint?
Well,
No?
Actually, I don't believe it does. I think that's all stained woodwork and then
yeah.
Oh,
I
all
haven't
right.
only
seen
gonna
it.
get the lead
Yeah.
paint to the.
Yeah.
so, and as far as site and expenses and so forth, keep in mind, there is going to have to be a new highway department building
somewhat.
within the next 5 years or sooner. And there's issues with the fire department building, not as much, and also the police department. So,
Well, my thought along that, because I had
no, that's good.
sat in on the webinar at the very beginning, and one of the things, and read through your notes from other towns you've worked with, of shared space. You're looking at the whole town and the needs of the whole town. What about a new building that would house, possibly in some way, all 3? Could that happen?
You're
So-
talking highway, fire, and police. That has been part of a discussion, and the
That would like
selectmen...
quadruple the cost.
Well, wait, don't go there yet. So that is something that the Board of Selectmen has hired Weston and Sampson on recommendation by the Building and Facilities Board to be house doctors, to look at these buildings, but also to make a proposal to improve the highway department.
Would it make any sense for the library to be housed somewhere? Or would that, I mean, those 3 kind of go together,
Combined highway library.
but the library
And you'll
doesn't
go to
really
the
fit
library.
into
The
that.
fire, the fire
Yeah.
trucks,
Yeah, so if
you
you-
go from the
No.
library into the fire truck garage.
Yeah.
So,
Probably not, probably wouldn't.
It's usually more, I've seen municipal centers and libraries together.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see
Right.
police, fire, and highways.
No, COA is very,
Even
very
highway
common.
usually doesn't go with police and fire.
Yeah.
Highway's on its own, and then police and fire merge
Yeah.
together. That's usually what I've
But
seen.
let's
But
see
there would
what they
be,
come up
yeah,
with.
I can remember when that fire station was built,
Yeah.
and I'll be the first to say, I voted against the fire station, because I said, you have the land available right there, you might have to do some taking, to do a complete safety complex, like you've done with the schools, thank God. And you can put, there is no reason why you can't have police, fire, and highway. It's actually,
Yeah.
I think it's an unbelievable concept.
And that was
you have
a-
the entire thing in one
Absolutely.
thing.
But they,
That was
it's
a
a,
proposal, but it didn't. it
because it's an entire campus, it's not necessarily shared buildings.
wasn't. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So trying to keep this to about an hour so that you all can get back to whatever you're doing. Let me move on to, this is a question that was formulated by Mass Board of Library Commissioners as sort of a free thinking, and then I have my own free thinking. And this was, if a tornado destroyed the library, aren't we thinking this the same
It's
week
gone.
as, there it is, the same week as the Worcester tornado, we're having this conversation.
Oh, I remember.
Too many of us, you young folks don't, but
I read the book on it.
53.
I worked with the guy who wrote it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was at Wallem Lake enjoying my class day picnic
Really?
and asking, why is the sky so orange over there? And didn't find out, because there's no cell phones, no.
Oh, yeah, right,
And got it back home and, oh, there was a tornado.
Yeah. My aunt and uncle got married that day,
Oh, my.
Oh, man.
and one of my sisters was just a year old, and she was staying with an aunt on the other side. And there was my sister and her, and the two cousins. One was 2, and the other, my sister and the other one were a year old. And my aunt grabbed them, they were up on Burncoat, off Burncoat. One kid under each arm pushed the 2-year-old down the steps. When she came up, she found the side of the roof. The side of the wall was gone, and the big armoire she had started to hide them under was gone. My husband was in it. He remembers spaghetti sauce all over the wall, because they had spaghetti at his house on whatever day of the week it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't, those are things that stick in your mind. But so anyway, if a tornado took the Simon Fairfield Library forthwith, what would you do? What would you love to see as total recreation?
Does that
'Cause-
count- does that count as ours if the libraries doesn't exist anymore? I'm just wondering. Now, do we own the land anymore? I'm just wondering.
Oh, and so there you
You know,
go.
that's the question. If it's not our land after that.
Okay, so one
Have to speak to
consideration is.
Yeah, exactly. Now I gotta talk to town council. But
Well, if it was, my thought, if it was gone, to rebuild and do all of the things that you would dream about doing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Well, that would happen, also, we've got to come up with that alternative site,
Right.
right?
So you would rebuild, and what would you put in it if you, to rebuild it, what would you put in it?
All of your modern technology, that would be
Good
of a
bathroom.
library of today.
You know, whether it's an elevator.
Yes, definitely.
Access,
Yeah.
I don't know, ramp, I don't know exactly,
Solar,
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
you never know.
heat, heating,
Yep.
electric heating, the.
Oh, they have that there now?
They have those,
Yeah, the mini splits right now.
Yeah.
but improved
Yeah. Oh, yeah, new window, all that would be nice to have, new
Yeah.
windows and everything.
Well, if it
insulation.
was gone, you'd be building it.
Exactly. You start
Well,
with
you
all
would.
that. Yeah.
Now, do you have, are you a green community?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to do the new.
Correct.
We're not super stretched, we're only stretched.
It's only stretch, but that's okay, it's a start. And then, how about the zero?
Emissions?
Yeah, the,
We're only stretched, we're not super stretched.
no, but I mean, would you put in a zero, 100%,
I don't know that
no
you could
fossil
do it.
fuels and things like
I don't think
that?
you could do it and be economical about it. I think it would get shut down by the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at an increased cost on a building to go to net zero,
Net zero, yeah.
would be an increased cost, about 60% of the cost. to do that. And it's just,
Yes,
I
I
mean,
know.
it's great to push wants out there,
Yeah,
but you have to have the technology, and it's just not here yet. We're struggling as a building community now with this first phase that came in January 1 residential,
yep,
July 1 commercial. Phase 2 comes in January 1, 24 for residential, and July 1, 24 for commercial. I've got people already telling me, I'm selling the pieces of land and I'm done building. And they just can't make it work.
so I'm gonna put that into one of the challenges with the,
See, they were
The cost and
mandating net zero
requirements of-
by 2050. The state's pushing net zero to 2037 as their goal in the state of Massachusetts. That's why they're pushing. And the DORE and the ECC have way overstepped. It's great, you know, energy efficiency is great, but you can't make a building conform to an energy efficiency without changing structure. So now that's where this whole thing is.
and so new construction would still be, it'd still be cost prohibitive then? If the
For net zero.
If the
You're
tornado
gonna
took the building?
increase it by 60% is what the estimates are right now.
Yep.
You know.
I know when the original stretch code came in, it was way too
So
expensive.
the average 2,400 square foot colonial today, with phase 1 of the energy code,
Yep,
is costing about $25,000 more for the same exact building than it did previous year. When it goes into the, because we value it on HERS ratings. So when the stretch code came in 2005, I believe it came in, we went from basically the Wild West to, you have to meet an energy efficiency 55% of the homes better. So that was the standard. Now this year it's 52%. In 2024 it's going to 42%. It's just,
Yeah.
that's a huge, huge jump.
yeah. And there's no step down either. It's all or nothing. Any other, I know, it's, when you think
I'm
about
looking
it.
at the design of the building itself.
Yeah.
And the space. And I'm gonna go back to what I'm gonna call dedicated space, which would be an area, a children's area that's actually meant for children, that not, the staff is wonderful there at the library of using what they have to make it work, and it's a nice cozy space right now. But if we have dedicated space, a children's area that's large enough for them to move around freely, do whatever. And again, then an area of what could be called quiet study, let's call it that, rather than a meeting room, we'll call it an area of quiet study. And then obviously your areas of books and computers and all that, and another maybe centralized place. So I'm looking at like a, whatever, the building layout could be done the way we want it instead of working with what we have.
You're not saying anything, jump in. Give your
Hold on a minute,
thoughts.
because I want to go back to something.
Good. What do you want to go back to?
Did you say something about a relocation?
Is it possibly, yeah.
Does this building have a third floor, second floor? What's above?
Yeah, the attic space, yep.
What are they using it for?
A lot of
Static books.
storage. Yeah, a lot of
Storage,
storage.
storage books, books that don't
Yeah,
circulate
it's
a
not
lot,
really
but that we want to
accessible
keep, they
storage.
we move up there. You have to go through a door
You have
that's
to
this
crawl through a
tall.
little door that's this tall on each side, so.
I couldn't remember.
Oh, are you talking about the library or this building?
Oh,
This
oh,
building.
oh, I'm sorry, this building.
building.
I
Oh, this
apologize.
building. Oh,
Sorry.
I misunderstood.
wrong
So,
building. Yeah.
There's only 2 floors.
This
There's
this
2
building.
floors here.
So what's on the second floor?
So the second floor,
Second floor right now is storage.
it's full up there, and they've been wanting to move upstairs, that actually part of, it's gonna be a complicated thing, part of the water line expansion up Depot Street is to get a new water line in the building so they can occupy upstairs for sprinkler system. They have to put a sprinkler system before they can occupy it.
Being funded, the water line is being funded by the,
ARPA funds,
that's right.
correct.
So are you suggesting space here possibly?
the first thing
But
we'd
then
have to
the
do. a
town
little
If it's
hall would
storage,
be
archiving.
a
if it's
place to store their
storage,
records.
if they're
Storage
storing
removal.
stuff, I mean, why can't they store it somewhere else?
It's all archive material.
Yeah.
It's all mandatory
Yeah.
kept
We
material.
have to keep-
All the legal documents for.
I'm not saying to trash it, I'm just saying store it somewhere
If you
else.
saw how much is there,
Um,
it's very difficult to find homes.
You'd have to build another building.
But I will jump on that
If it
point
was
with
all
you
sorted
too.
and archived,
If the
would
police
it fit in the
station ever
library?
left here,
Well, if it's
it's
archived,
handicap
50%
accessible,
we can
has a ramp, and, you know, I'm not,
Gotta get rid of
you know, I mean, it needs upgrades, so we don't, it's police
Gotta get
station, not
rid of
meant for a library.
That's an
But
interesting.
if the police station ever goes, a new building,
Not this fast.
now you do have, you know, you may have something there, or vice versa, you can move stuff down, move up, however you want to do
But
it.
that's, again, that's way down the pipeline.
Exactly, this is-
Way, way down.
It's like every domino has to fall a different way in order to make this
Exactly
all
where you
work.
want it.
So what was this originally, this building?
This is high school.
Schools,
Okay.
high school.
And then was the police station part of what is now the police station? Was it part of the original high school, or did that get added on to be?
That came from the old town hall, which is now the post office,
Oh, okay.
and the adult
See,
center.
yep.
All right, so here's the last thing. If money were no object, what would you have if money were no object?
I don't know if any of you
solarium.
have ever been down to the library in Plymouth. It's phenomenal.
Where is that?
In Plymouth. It's phenomenal. They've kept the character of the, 1930s, the brick and mortar. They've got some nice white pillar work going on. But you go into the library and they have the main entrance area where reception is and everything. And it's just like series of arms that go out for different groupings. So you have the kids area, you have young adults, you have
That's what I'm
college
talking
age,
about.
you have general reading, and there's all these wings, different floors that you go up, with little study areas in between tables set up like this, and little quiet areas in the corner.
That's
And
exactly
they've
what I
got
have
shelves
in
with
mind.
just all the books lined up, all alphabetically lined up.
Probably on a smaller scale too. Blackstone has a nice library.
I knew where it is, I've never been
Yeah,
there.
really nice. But it sounds like on a smaller scale than Plymouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Plymouth Library is just such
That
a,
sounds nice.
but it's incredible the way it's laid out. you
Right.
know.
Right.
You don't need the big solariums and glass and all that. You know, I've always been an advocate of, it's not the building, it's what's in the building. Put the money in the building.
I believe Webster just did a new library.
Yeah.
That's very modern.
Small,
though.
It's-
modern.
yeah.
It doesn't fit with that downtown.
It doesn't.
It doesn't, exactly.
And
I
it
agree.
is so big.
Is it? I haven't been inside.
It is, well, it's a big open room.
Yeah, when you
Yeah.
walk in the front, it's.
Well, that's
yeah.
it.
The site
And
it's
Blackstone
on
is
is
much
not.
more
No,
spread out.
Parking
with
isn't-
the
the-
building itself is
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
big open room,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all glass.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, kind of.
Yeah.
The
And then-
Grafton Library, if you went there, that would be a library, I would say, that would be this size.
So Grafton, and they maintained their original building, their original,
Yeah.
so they had the little original building, and then they had an addition that was in the 60s, 70s, something like, and they took down the addition, and they maintained the original building. And that's an interesting site, because the original building's up here. It doesn't look like it from the common, it looks like it's all, but it's really a whole story above. Then they put the second story underneath. And they replicated the original building on the back. So they had the original, and then they put the middle in, and then sort of honored the main.
So you
Black-
look at it from 140, I think that is right
Yeah.
there. You look at it from the road, and it fits with the character of the town.
It does, yeah. And then Blackstone is it's big and open, but it's not, most of it, because of the design, the height isn't overwhelming, but it's, forgot how many square feet that is.
You're talking Blackstone?
Blackstone, yeah. And then, so, it's worth visiting some of the other libraries, to, just to get some ideas from, as a matter of fact, down around Plymouth, they're having a library crawl over these next couple of weeks, and you can get a
Don't tell
passport.
my wife.
You know where you're going.
I'm not a
gonna walk-
reader.
she's-
My wife is a reader, and that's why I end up in all the libraries.
She's gonna end up, she's probably watching, right?
Well, I would say the same thing, so if I need to talk to your wife, because if I said to my husband, so if it's raining Saturday and we can't play golf, want to go on a library crawl? He loves libraries, he reads all the time, I would get the eye roll. So,
One of the other things, and then Ken will be able to talk about this better, but his weight ratings for books and stuff, right?
150 fat
Okay.
pounds, live load per
So
square
that's
foot.
another thing about an addition, whether it can handle that when you go up, you know,
Right.
versus having a one-floor library on a cement slab.
I was thinking that when we were talking about going up, talking about the bones of the building, are the
That's-
bones strong
why,
enough to
like Ken said,
hold?
yeah.
That's why you
Paper's
get a
heavy.
structural engineer in there. The first thing you do, let the engineers go through and, hey, they might need to open a wall here or there.
Yeah.
But if you're seriously, and the money's there and it's a sub-project, that's what you do. So you don't get that surprise when you open a wall and
Right.
say, oh, by the way, now we have
So,
to do this.
one of the requirements for the grant proposal is a facility assessment. You have to bring somebody, I'm not quite sure it goes to the wall opening stage quite, but you do have to get a facility assessment.
Well, I'm not talking tear walls all.
Yeah. No, I know that, I know
Put
what
the
you mean.
cameras in there so they can see now.
Yeah, so they can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a building,
Do all your seismic
that's a grant
ratings
requirement.
and everything to go with it.
Yeah, yeah. And then if they changed the process this year. It used to be that to apply for the grant, you would have had to go as far as schematic design. So you'd have your building program, you'd hire the architect, who would then bring in the engineers to do those, the real basic stuff, not the biggest, but the site needs, the structural and things like that. And then do a schematic, and that would be part of the grant proposal. This year, they are, and so there used to be a planning and design grant separate. This year, they are doing, required to have the building program, the facility assessment, and then if you get the grant, then you start on the whole next step, bringing in the OPM, the architects, and all the engineers that they bring in with them. So it's a little bit different, but that's it. So any more, if money were no objects?
Could we just backtrack a little bit?
Sure.
We're talking about, okay, if we move the library
Yep.
to another building, what would be the recommendation of the use of the present library?
Good question.
Does that have to go? It should.
Well, that's a town, right, that's a town issue. It's not
Okay, not
grant,
part of
it's
this.
not a grant
It reverts
requirement.
back to the family, do we even have a say? It's not a library anymore.
Yeah.
Let me
Well,
just
it could
throw this out
be-
there, there's
Yeah.
nothing saying that that couldn't be an annex to the
Well, there you
library.
go.
Okay.
So why give it away?
Yeah, no,
you know?
Okay. Yep.
Maybe that becomes the big meeting room.
Right,
there you go.
or a children's area.
When you're adding a lot more staff.
Right, so that every time we say,
Just the cost of maintaining
correct, yeah,
two
Another
buildings.
two buildings. But that's why it's good to list, everybody, all of you talk about all these possibilities, because these are the questions that come up and have to be thinking about
Everybody
them.
sees the growth going on in town. That's also additional revenue coming into town. That one building is only one of 4 that's gonna be here. Those buildings will increase the value of town. It'll double the value
So
of town,
which
just in those warehouse buildings.
Which,
That building right there is being built right now.
I'm sorry, you were
Yeah.
pointing, oh, that one, oh,
I thought
okay.
he was pointing.
So you're bringing in not only, you're bringing commercial and residential. What do you have left for land? Is it
Say again?
land?
lot.
Are you
This-
still have a lot?
This is a substantial amount. I mean, we have 7,000 acres plus or minus that's state forest. We have a lot of open space. I would say maybe 1,000 acres total of open space. Other than that, we have a lot of land that has already been divided out, but it's, 10-acre house lot, 15-acre house lot, and there's a lot
There's
of
a lot
that.
in South Douglas.
South Douglas has got
Like
a
in
lot of
Winter Street,
wetlands.
off of Perry.
Well,
It's got
Yeah,
a lot
but
of
they're still
wetlands.
putting them in.
Well, there's, there was 600 acres sold down in South Douglas that a developer is
Correct.
doing his
Trying to
due,
put it in.
doing his due diligence to see how many homes he can get in there. I wouldn't be surprised to see 400 homes down there,
Absolutely.
just saying.
So you have, you still have a
We
substantial,
probably, if I
you're
had
not
to-
close to build
I
up.
mean, I don't have an accurate number, but if I had a guesstimation, we
I
probably,
always think in my head.
I would
that's
say
another classroom, that's
between
a
2,000 and 3,000 buildable lots.
Oh, okay.
Going down,
Talking about
If I had to guess.
And they're not little shacks either, these are
No.
McMansions.
But, don't forget, every home, you've got to count on at least 2 point something.
2.3 children.
Correct.
2.3?
That's what the average is per house,
So then you have 2.3 children in each house,
times
So that 5
400.
people.
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
build
Yep.
another school or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
now
I-
those schools will
I-
be
Yeah,
there.
that's
you
what
know-
we just had the discussion about the roads, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see the
Today.
revenue, don't count on all that revenue until they're occupied.
Yep.
I'm not against building,
That's not, that revenue's not dictated by occupied.
Oh,
Well,
exactly,
It's a
exactly.
building built, it's a building taxed.
okay.
Now, where's that one going?
That's going right down on Gilboa Street, across from the mill. You can see it through the woods northeast.
When I get off,
Oh,
when I get off
the bridge.
146?
When you get off 146 and head down, you see where all the construction is going,
Yep.
they're building a new little bridge.
Yep.
That's going into that.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
Cost
you-
is no object, can I have that?
What's the name of that building?
It would be hard pressed to fill that building.
have a
They would
corner of that.
probably put the
0.2 million
cubes on
square feet.
Gilboa, but
That's
I don't know
CRG.
if that's
I
not
just need a
the
corner.
official name of it.
Yeah,
The cubes on Gilboa?
yeah. I
Really?
think, yeah.
It's
I'm not
another
sure.
place to put stuff.
Library is stuff.
We need a place to
You
put
gotta rent
stuff.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's what, 3 solar farms?
We're working on number 4,
Okay, yes,
up in your neighborhood,
yes.
unfortunately.
But that's okay, better than houses, in a sense.
Oh, I'm gonna bring that back to my town because, never mind. I'm just bringing that.
But, so are the other 3 working already and being a tax
Well-
revenue?
I have not done final sign-offs on either of the other 2 that are in.
So I don't-
Are they
you know,
still, are they producing? Yes. They're not producing and storing like they wanted. I think they might be storing now, but they're not signed off fully. But are they operational? Yes.
So 2 are operational,
3 total, 3? Yeah, 3.
working on 1, it makes
Number
it
4 is
4.
going in.
Yeah,
Number 1 is operational, has been for years, down on Northeast Main Street,
okay,
in back of the.
Bosma.
Yeah.
Bosma's Farm.
yeah,
Then there's the 170 West Street,
okay.
up on the hill, that's completed. I don't know what National Grid's final standing is on their final hookups on that. I know they ran all the new poles down West Street and all that.
Yep.
And
There's a
then-
Gil one,
Huh?
Gil, right across my highway.
Yeah, I didn't even think of
It's
that.
a little one, but.
Yeah, but, yeah, I'm looking at the other ones, were all 40 acres plus.
Yeah,
A couple of them are
Okay.
60 acres. I think the one going on Oak Street is 45 acres. Wallem Lake is 57 acres. West Street was 65 acres. So it's a lot of acreage of solar.
And what were they, what was it before they put
Woods.
solar in?
Woods.
Fields, yeah.
Well,
Open
Bosma
space.
was a field, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Open space.
open space.
Yeah.
Well, it's been just over an hour, and I thank you so much. If you want to stay and talk, this is great. I mean, but I know you probably all have other things to do, but thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
If you don't have any